Good afternoon. Good evening, of course, depending from where you hear my voice from. This is the Biafran Golden Child, and I'm super happy to come your way today. Once again, I'm really excited that we can interact, that we can hear one another, and I can read your different comments. Thank you for the comments you sent to the BSN, Biafra Superstars Media. Mighty glad that at least we are creating, we're sending a message and we are being understood. You're welcome to this new audio today. Yeah, a few days ago we brought up an audio where we talked about, you know, uh, the former governor of Anambra State and immediate past minister of Labor and Employment, Senator Chris Ngige. We talked about how he lamented over the dog eat dog mentality of his fellow Biafrans. And of course, we told ourselves the truth. We called a spade a spade. We didn't mince words, but we encouraged our people of Biafra descent, people of Biafra extraction, that indeed we must be very articulate, we must be very intentional in whatever we're doing. We should shun this tendency, to be a clog in the wheel of progress of our fellow brothers. Of course, we were told that we indeed need to act with one voice. We need to support one another. We need to watch each other's back if we wanted progress. And of course, we equally highlighted the fact that when we each work together, when we come together, when we congregate and pursue a common motive, a common objective, a common value, then of course we are going to achieve a whole lot of things in a twinkle of an eye. Yes, we agreed, that when the broom is put together, to break it is often, almost always very difficult. When the broom is alone, to break it is just in seconds. And so we said, look, don't be throwing banana peels against your brother. Don't thwart your brother's dreams. And when you cannot help, don't be the one to run him down. Of course, because we see what a lot of Igbo people, a lot of Biafrans are doing to one another. We have seen in recent times where, we, come out to see people who were the ones who betrayed our PM, Simon Ekwa, in faraway Lati, Finland. We saw that a whole lot of brothers, a whole lot of sisters that he trusted, were actually the ones who betrayed him. They were the ones who sabotaged him. They were the ones who were feeding Finnish authorities with false narratives about our ebullient, vivacious, and courageous prime minister. And of course, we know they were the ones who betrayed him with a kiss, like Judas did in the Bible. Of course, we equally look at, talked about Nnamdi Kanu's experience, both inside the IPOB and both outside Nigeria. Of course, we know some people, his own kith and kin, were the ones who betrayed him in Kenya, who, of course, exposed his route, his movements, his activities in Kenya, from which he was kidnapped, manhandled, and eventually renditioned, if you like, back to Nigeria. And of course, since then, he has been, living in very harsh, inhuman conditions at the DSS dungeon. Yes, we know what is happening to Dr. Ngozi Arabweze, our Deputy Prime Minister, former Chief of Staff, who has been holding brief since Simon Ekpa has, been under trial and litigation. But of course, we see that this young woman's effort, the vibrant effort of this elegant stallion, this woman who has become an Amazon of sorts, who has eventually, become a perfect adumbration of what indeed service and leadership should be in, the USB, the United States of Biafra, this woman who has achieved so much, including garnering support from world leaders around the world, including getting the 47th president of the United States, Mr. Donald Trump, to invite her and by extension invite Biafra, the USB, to his inauguration. Yes, his inauguration as the 47th president of the United States. Yes, in America. We are so happy with what she's doing. But every other day, we read a catalog of, woes. People are complaining, accusing, counter-accusing, threatening. People are doing everything to rubbish her, to demotivate her, to weaken her, and to discourage her. All these people are not aliens. They're not from other regions. These people are, in fact, her bone of bone, flesh of flesh, her own kith and kin, fellow Biafrans, people who say they believe in Biafra, people who say they want us to actualize the sovereign United States of Biafra. But all they do is, creating problems, standing as stumbling blocks, creating stumbling blocks for the achievement of success, for the achievement of the sovereign United States of Biafra. These are people who are saboteurs, our own, our own brothers and sisters, people who bear our names, people who share our culture, people who belong to us, our personal people, if you like. And so we made, a brief synopsis of what Chris Ngige, how he lamented on the betrayal that almost cost him his life. Of course, it cost him, his position as the governor of Anambra State. It cost him a number of people, you know, uh, it denied a number of people an opportunity to have experienced what this guy could have done by way of developmental implementations and achievements. And that is why we brought Chris Ngige to the house just a few days ago. Ladies and gentlemen, permit me today, yes, today once again, to bring former governor of Anambra State and immediate past Minister of Labor and Productivity, immediate past Minister of Labor and Employment, Senator Chris Ngige. Let's bring him back to the Biafra Superstars media. Let's celebrate him in Biafra today, because in recent times he has come out openly to declare his support for the USB. He has come out openly to say, yes, I think Nnamdi Kanu must be released unconditionally. And ladies and gentlemen, this audio is about Grace Ngige and what he has just told Nigerians. He has told them, if you have ears, hear. For those who have ears, hear. Quote, release Kanu now, or you will never have peace. Chris Ngige. Quote, release Kanu now, or you will never have peace. Unquote. Chris Ngige. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, like I said, let's give this man an opportunity to address us, because he has come up, to be very vocal and to, be very, very practical. Let me say, for the first time, Grace Ngige has become, maybe he's now repented, but of course, a whole lot of the Southern leaders, a whole lot of our governors, a whole lot of our legislators, a whole lot of our commissioners and ministers, as soon as they assume office, as soon as they get what they want, after deceiving the electorate, after deceiving our people that they are going to do all manners of miracle in Igbo land, miracle in Biafra land, after they deceive our electorates and get the votes, they usually do an about turn. Of course, change their numbers. Of course, they no longer communicate with their constituents. Of course, They now get bodyguards and they move in entourage, so that you can't have access to them. And they begin to create all manners of wickedness, sadness, creating poverty and lack and harsh conditions for the people who voted them in. But I can tell you today that it looks like very, very likely that the former governor of Anambra State and the immediate past Minister of Labor and Employment, Senator Chris Ngige, has come to the knowledge of the truth. Yes, he has changed. Yes, he has become rare. Yes, he has decided to follow, the USB. He has begun to campaign vigorously for the immediate release of our maximum leader, Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, because of course he now knows, he now understands that Mazi Nnamdi Kanu is a peaceful man who was barely and merely telling the whole world, calling attention to the plight of his people, the Biafrans. He was telling the whole world, including Nigerians, that indeed you cannot continue to treat my people as second hand. You cannot use them and dump them, much like using the Lipton tea bags, throw them in water, take out their juice, make away all their juice, and you throw them away with 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 abandonment. That is totally unfair. That is what Christian Ngige has come up to say. Ladies and gentlemen, I think he deserves to be listened to. I think we should pay attention to this man because, of course, we know our goal in USB. We know our goal in the United States of Biafra. We want to promote, we want to continue to protect, we want to continue to propagate, everything the USB represents, everything Biafra represents. Biafra represents a united people with a common motive, a common purpose, a common objective to build a strong, resilient, sovereign, united nation. Yes, the United States of Biafra. We don't want to be like the zoo. We don't want to be like the shithole. We don't want to be like the country, Nigeria, that has been described as there was a country by our prolific late writer, Professor Chinua. Ladies and gentlemen, we don't want to have a USB that the 47th president of the United States will call a shithole. No, as he called Nigeria. We don't want the rat race. We don't want to wear a country where somebody will wake up one morning and say, it is my turn, a Miloko. No way. And so we're so happy when people like this, yes, when they begin to do everything, when they come out and they begin to talk Biafra, they begin to think Biafra, and they begin to say things that shows, yes, they know where the rain started beating them. So of course, they know where it has stopped beating them. Ladies and gentlemen, I make bold to say this morning that the former governor of Anambra State, immediate past Minister of Labor and Employment, Senator Chris Ngige, has come out to show that he knows where the rain started beating on him and he knows where it stopped beating him. He has come back repentant. He has come back repentant. He has come back a repentant fellow, back to flourish, to cohabit, and indeed to motivate and encourage his fellow Biafrans. Because of course he knows that no matter how the bird flies, no matter how quick the bird flies, it cannot escape. It cannot escape the target. The target, the aim, solid aim of the hunter, except of course it remembers where it is from. Except of course it flocks around its own kit and kin. That is what Chris Ngige has demonstrated this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to tell you what Chris Ngige told the whole world, what he told uh, the current Jagaban, what he's saying, and what he intends to be saying from now hence on. Give me your, yes, let's go into it. The former governor of Anambra State and the immediate past Minister of Labor and Employment, Senator Chris Ngige, has appealed to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to release the detained leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, Nnamdi Kanu, citing worsening insecurity and economic hardship in the southeast. Speaking in Abuja on Wednesday, Ngige said the prolonged detention of Nnamdi Kanu has crippled economic activities in the region, particularly due to the sustained Monday sit-at-home protests, and called for a political solution to the matter. He expressed disappointment that former President Muhammadu Buhari failed to heed similar pleas during his tenure, despite persistent efforts by prominent Igbo leaders to secure Kanu's release. Yes, I was disappointed. Quote, yes, I was disappointed, and I told him. I told Buhari, Ngige said, in 2022, I facilitated a meeting between him and the delegation of respected Igbo leaders, including the late Chief Mbazulike Amechi, the late Dr. Chukwemeka Zefe, Bishop Onoha, Chief Wazurike, Dr. Bonaya Ono, and myself. According to Ngige, during the meeting, Chief Mbazulike Amechi had passionately requested that Kanu be released into the custody of the delegation. But Buhari described the request as difficult, though he appeared emotionally moved by the appeal. Buhari told us, quote, that it was a difficult request and you could see the pain on his face, but he granted access to Kanu for members of the delegation, Ngige recalled. Ngige further disclosed that he later returned to Buhari privately to press for the invocation of the constitutional prerogative of mercy, which empowers the sitting president to pardon individuals either convicted or undergoing trial. However, he said Buhari cited the involvement of the judiciary and national security agencies as constraints. Even till today, I believe that the issue of Nnamdi Kanu needs a political solution, Ngige maintained. The president of the country should be seen to show magnanimity, especially now that the economy of the Southeast is being threatened by the continued sit-at-home protests. Ngige noted that the economic loss caused by shutting down activities every Monday has deepened poverty in the region, particularly among informal sector workers and self-employed youths. Quote, a lot of young men in the Southeast are idle, and they often justify it by pointing to Kanu's incarceration, unquote, Ngige said. Some even quote court rulings, both local and foreign, declaring his apprehension and extradition illegal, unquote. He urged President Tinubu to intervene in the spirit of national healing and unity. I'm appealing to Mr. President Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu to grant us this gesture and allow young people in the Southeast to begin rebuilding their lives, Ngige said. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the former governor and immediate past uh, minister for employment, employment uh, and labor, Senator Chris Ngige. You heard him there. He has narrated very painfully how he and some prominent Igbo leaders went to meet the late PMB, late President Muhammadu Buhari, and they told him, they appealed that he should release our own venerable leader, Nnamdi Kanu, Onyendu Nnamdi Kanu. And of course, he has told us, unfortunately, that PMB refused to oblige them, citing the fact that the matter was already in court and equally that a whole lot of security agencies were involved, that it could not therefore unilaterally release Nnamdi Kanu. But I tell you the truth, I tell you, ladies and gentlemen, I will not tell you I was disappointed in what Buhari said. No, but you remember, all of us remember, this same late Buhari, had once threatened uh, our own Nnamdi Kanu, telling him to the face, I would make sure you rot in jail. I will make sure you don't see the daylights anymore. I will make sure everything you talk about Biafra, everything you talk about against the Nigerian state, you swallow it and die in it over my dead body. Would you, ever see the daylights again? And quote and unquote, that was PMB himself. Yes, I'm happy today. Of course, we don't celebrate anybody's death. But of course, he said over his dead body. And I can tell you today, indeed, he has died. PMB has died. And so his oath over his dead body has worn off. I think it's about time now that Nnamdi Kanu is released unconditionally. The man who said, over my dead body is already 6 feet under the grave. Oh, no, sorry. Someone just corrected me. It's not 6 feet. They do 3 feet. It's 3 feet under the sand, under the ground. So, it's very, very instructional, ladies and gentlemen, that we can hear somebody as prominent as a one-time senator, as a former governor, and as a minister in Anambra State, uh, Senator Chris Ngige, coming out to say, narrate these efforts, this grand, uh, this grandstanding efforts, that are highly, highly commendable to show that indeed they have not been sleeping all this while. That while we have all been clamoring for Nnamdi Kanu's release unconditionally, people like him equally have been doing their own in their own private capacity. We thank all the gentlemen, prominent people he mentioned, and we are telling them today it's a job well done. Continue doing what you're doing, but be aware, be fully aware that Nnamdi Kanu is coming out any moment from now. Remember, Justice James Omotosho of the Federal High Court Abuja had given both uh, the defendants and he has told them, both those who are prosecuting attorneys, those who are defending attorneys, he has sat with them on a round table and told them, so far, so good. I can't really decide whether this Nnamdi Kanu's trial has to go on, but I leave it to you, prosecuting attorneys. Awomolo, Awomolowo, I leave it to you, Chief San Agabi, I leave it to you. I want you guys to decide, look at the pros and the cons, look at what you have as evidence, consider what the witnesses, Mark's witnesses have said, and let us know if indeed there would be a continuous trial for this Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. And of course, because both the prosecuting attorneys and because equally the defending attorneys could not take one opinion, because the prosecuting attorneys were claiming that indeed most of the things Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, was touted to have said, was alleged to have said, were incendious matters that actually, you can consider a breach of freedom of speech, and it jeopardized the unity of Nigeria as a sovereign entity, united sovereign entity. But of course, the defense attorneys, led by Sano Agabi, 2 times Minister for Justice and Attorney General of the Federation, said, look, whatever you think Mazi Nnamdi Kanu was saying was said out of frustration, was said out of, you know, uh, he was overwhelmed by the plight of his people. And he didn't actually say things, to be taken on prima facie value. They don't take them on face value. No, he was saying it as it was. He was telling the whole Nigeria, telling the whole world about the plight of his people, the suffering of his people. How can my people be treated so unfairly, like a defeated people, despite the so-called amnesty granted by living head of state then, General Yakubu Gowon, who said, no victor, no vanquished. Come back. We offer you the 3 hours. We give you the 3 hours. Reconciliation, rehabilitation, and we thought when he said reconstruction, he was going to reconstruct the whole Southeast and the Nigerian entity again. But unfortunately, we discovered there was a whole lot of lip service. Jaragowan did not actually implement the 3 hours, and of course, the so-called "no victor, no vanquished" became a failed mantra, especially because it started from the very beginning. As soon as the war ended in 1970, and they had declared no victor, no vanquished, they have promised the 3 hours. What the Igbos, what the Biafrans were gifted was a very sorry, a very miserable, a very unpalatable 20 pounds, despite the fact that they had thousands in the bank, despite the fact that some of them were millionaires. What they were gifted was a paltry, very miserable 20 pounds that could do nothing for them. I mean, these are family men. These are men who are married with children. These are men who has to pay for accommodation, build houses. These are men who have to pay for school fees for their children. These are men who needed to take care of themselves and their families. And you are giving them a miserable, very miserable 20 pounds. So that was what Nnamdi is talking about. And that is what fueled his frustration and anger. When he said, go out, during the SARS protest, he was filled with pain when he saw that the soldiers, the policemen, were using live bullets on peaceful protesters. And of course, he said, this is not fair. If this is what they're doing, then go after them yourself. So Chief Kanu Agabi's son, begged the Honorable Court, under Justice James Omotosho, to rescind every so-called accusations and charges against Mazen Nnamdi Kanu and release him unconditionally. But of course, ladies and gentlemen, Justice James Omotosho, of course, have to, bow. He had to kowtow. He had to bow to the powers that be. He had to listen to the power from above. And of course, he was instructed, to adjourn the matter till 10th of September. So, ladies and gentlemen, on 10th of September, we're going to go. We're watching. We're looking towards, and we're believing. Come 10th of September, we will know the final fate of our Mazemon leader. Yes, but of course, I hope you have it at the back of your mind that the whole world has told Nigeria, have told PMB, I've told the Jagaban, BBAT, that of course you should know we are watching. Especially the 47th President of America, Mr. Donald Trump, has told him, listen and listen clearly. We know what you're doing. You claim to be a Democrat. You claim to be a good man. You claim to respect, the rule of law, and you claim to maintain equity and justice, fairness, equity, and justice. And you said you're a Democrat. We are watching because the abuse of rule of law in Nigeria and the fall descent of the judiciary from being, the panacea, from being the final succor to the common man has long departed from Nigeria. What we see now is that judiciary, judgments go in favor of the highest bidder. But we want to warn you that our eyes on you, we have sent our observers, and they have come to see what was happening in the courts at Abuja. We are warning you, President Donald Trump, the 47th president of Nigeria, is warning you to be very careful. You know your records. We still have your records. The CIA, the FBI have your records. We know your play bargaining. We know what you did. We know why you were settling and bribing and paying so much money just for you to, be. I don't want to go into details, but you have to be very careful. We know the difference between University of Chicago and Chicago State University. We know about passports that bear a woman's name, but wish a woman's picture, but wish was your name. We know a whole lot of things. Don't let us begin, to freshen old wounds. Don't let us introduce the sanctions. Be very careful, PBAT, and do justice. Do justice to the Biafra people. Do justice to Mr. Kanu. So, ladies and gentlemen, you've heard it. That was Chris Ngige, Senator Chris Ngige, one-time governor, even though for a very short spell, senator, and more just lately, he has Minister for Employment and Labor. He has told you that he was highly disappointed that former President Muhammad Buhari failed to heed similar pleas during his tenure, despite persistent efforts by prominent Igbo leaders to secure Kanu's release. Yes, he said it. He said he has been, and he said during the meeting that when they took some prominent Igbo chieftains, to meet PMB, that Chief Mbazulike Amechi had passionately requested that Kanu be released into the custody of the delegation. But Buhari described the request as difficult, quote and unquote, difficult, though he appeared emotionally moved by the appeal. Ladies and gentlemen, we've seen how it is. This is the kind of information the news will be having in the USB. The news will be spreading in the Biafra Superstars media, because we want to know who is saying what. We want to know who is doing what. We want to know who is interested in the plight of our fellow Biafrans. We want to know people who mean well, not those who hide behind the cloak, say one thing here and do other things at the back. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give it up for, Senator Chris Ngige. Yes, he's a good man. Yes, Biafra indeed can equally just forgive him. Yes, he didn't use his leadership position, to thwart justice or to defame our Biafra USB aspirations. No, he has come out now to say, yes, I think granting Nnamdi Kanu now, releasing Nnamdi Kanu now will, create a whole lot of peace for both Nigeria and the Southeast. So, ladies and gentlemen, you have it. Chris Ngige, quote, release Kanu now or you will never have peace, unquote. That's the message. That's the wrap, ladies and gentlemen. That's the wrap, my fellow freedom lovers. God bless United States of Biafra. God empower and strengthen Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, our Deputy Prime Minister, and we're looking forward to Simon Ekpa joining us any moment from now, joining her any moment from now, and equally come 10th of September 2025, we're looking forward to once again having our own venerable leader, Nnamdi Kanu, free and free indeed. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. God bless you until I come your way again. Thanks and bye for now.
Yeah, check me out. Superstars Media. Lord Logan, but let me tell Lord Logan, and it's why Flora show 1914 amalgamation is what we dying for. 3 nations to 1 nation, ever since annihilation. Nepotism is nonsense. You and you, clap your hands. Biafra gonna come, clap your hands. Biafra, Oduduwa, we're free now. Freedom is gonna come, we're free now. Yeah.